Be careful. You might learn something.
Let's go.
You are now tuned in to the Factual Opinions Podcast with your hosts, I Am Pharaoh. Straight facts.
All right, what's up, world? Factual Opinions Podcast, back in the place to be. This is Season 3, Episode 2. We're calling it Playoff P because Pharaoh is in playoff mode, just like our beloved Cincinnati Bengals. I'm your host, I Am Pharaoh, flanked, of course, by the Brown, Bruce Wayne, Big John.
Yes, sir.
Will West, the best Nate.
You know.
And back once again, we are honored to have Bengals Radio Network host, Cincinnati media legend, Wayne Box Miller, back in the place to be. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for coming through.
Yeah, you forgot that Michigan part, but go ahead.
Oh, here we go. Already.
Okay, so since
let's just get that out of the way, because the last time I was here, we kind of had a conversation about what was going to happen, and according to you.
So before we get to the Bengals talk today,
that's all I'm saying.
Hey, he jumped on you like flying Brian Pillman real quick.
I almost want my cardigan today.
So what Mr. Miller is alluding to is the University of Michigan, a.k.a. that team up north, did defeat my beloved Ohio State Buckeyes in November. In the second half, soundly, yes, they did pull away from the Buckeyes. And they also did what they normally do. After they get up and exhale after beating the Buckeyes, they completely fold in the bowl game. So,
as you guys did as well. Go ahead.
Well, you know, coming down to the last second where a kicker misses a field goal is a little bit different. A loss is a loss.
Sir Shank a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because there was big news in college football yesterday. Two-time Heisman finalist C.J. Stroud of the Buckeyes officially declared for the NFL draft. That was suspected. Yeah. And also news out of Ann Arbor. Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the University of Michigan, reaffirmed that he's staying in Michigan. That seems to be a yearly thing now where he has to reaffirm after flirting and entertaining the NFL. And I'm just wondering, if that environment is so great up there, why is it so hard to keep your coach in place up there?
Well, the fact that you're not aware of negotiation tactics, I'm going to educate you. You do that because they make them up the ante. Okay. So it's just a ploy. I mean, me personally, I don't like it, but it's the nature of the business. You're a hot property. You kind of leak that you're interested or the people are looking for you. And then they go back to the table and do a new deal. And you say, oh, hey, this is where I always wanted to be. But, hey, it is what it, it is like the transfer portal, man. I mean, things change. And, it's I don't like the transfer portal at this point. I think it's just a revolving door. Yeah. But I think what coaches do in cases like his is just leverage it because when you're in the hot seat, you have no leverage. Right. And now you're sitting on top of the mountain, you got leverage. And agents, more so than the coaches, are probably the ones instigating that. So, and then former UC President Santana got involved, got the deal done. So I think,
Well, so Harbaugh's trying to creep back up to that 11 or 12 million a year that he used to make before that demotion.
On the budget, man. Wow. He was living on a budget.
Well, that's what happens when you beat Ohio State University. Doors open up, That's certainly the measuring stick. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
You keep telling yourself that, but he'll be about $70 million a year in 10 years by the time we get through with y'all. I might be getting a contract.
No, absolutely. So, that's fine. And you got to give your hats off to both teams. I was certainly hoping, we were going back and forth on IG in the DMs. I was hoping for a national championship rematch. And, even people like ESPN's Keyshawn Johnson said he fully expected the Buckeyes to dispose of the Wolverines if they played one another. But, we can only do what if and wait till November in Ann Arbor and see what happens.
The guy told me if ifs were fifths, we'd all be drunk.
Yes, sir.
There we go.
Man.
So I'll let Mr. Miller off the hook for now with the Michigan-Ohio State talk. But certainly we're all proud and happy that the Bengals were able to win back-to-back playoff games for the first time in franchise, history as far as years back-to-back, 2 years in a row, qualifying for the playoffs and winning. Now we have the, I would say, Yankee, Laker, Celtic vibe where I hear fans actually criticizing victories. Have you noticed that when we got to the point where we're actually criticizing wins and critiquing them? I'm not really feeling that, because I come from the lost generation. We all do. Right. In the 90s and early 2000s. So we're not going to complain about victories on factual opinions.
Yeah, people get spoiled quick, don't they? I mean, all of a sudden now they scrutinize everything instead of enjoying it. And like you guys, I mean, I've lived through the good, the bad, the ugly. And it's just good to see this team playing well. It's good to see these players who are so close, man, and so much about team. That's what I really like about this team. I mean, there's this, we talked about it last time I was here, but man, you listen to the interviews, you listen to the commentary, and it exudes team. I mean, Sam Hubbard, you know, that play he made, and all of the players, every time you talk to a player, it's like, oh, I'm happy for Sam. I'm happy for Sam. I'm happy for Sam. And it's just over and over and over. They just want to see their teammates do well.
And they do pick up, you know, on each other and keep each other in good spirits. I know that Logan Wilson actually was the one that punched the ball free, and then that Buckeye scooped it and took it 98 yards. You know, that's why you need to keep a few of them on your team.
Yeah.
You know, Von Bell, another former All-American from The Ohio State University, was leading the way down the field, you know, escorting him to the end zone.
Too bad they couldn't play in Columbus. I might have won this year.
Well, Von Bell never lost to Michigan.
Yeah,
so,
that's why he should have went back up there this past
But no, I expected that to be a lot tougher game than I think some other Bengals fans did. Yeah. Because not only are you playing, you know, a team 3 times in one season, you know, we're talking AFC North football.
It's physical, man. And I think people that know football were expecting what that game was. I think fans who are just fans were thinking that this was going to be a cakewalk. But anybody that knows football, to your point, you play somebody 3 times, there are no secrets. Yeah. But number 2, there's a little rivalry going between these 2 teams. But I think I'm just happy that their quarterback was delusional and thought he was 6'6", like the quarterback down in Jacksonville, and could reach his arm across the goal line from the 2-yard line. Thank you for not realizing your arms are too short to box with God. Because Logan Wilson, great play. I mean, you know, obviously Sam Hubbard being alert, grabbing the ball and immediately getting on his horse and getting down the field. But I think that, you know, in games like these and going into Buffalo, it is typically going to come down to a couple of plays because these teams are so close in talent and they know each other so well that a play like that, you think about it, had they scored, that game changes completely.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely.
But that defense continues. From the beginning of this season to that game, the defense continues to find a way to get a fourth quarter turnover.
Yep, absolutely. The one that pops into my mind even before that was the New England game. It was actually a similar situation. New England was driving down the field. Time was of essence at that point. And again, that former first-team All-American Von Bell makes the strip and gets the Bengals back in position to win that game. So they certainly come up with timely plays. I know even Jermaine Pratt, I want to give a shout-out, Playoff P himself, was the one that initially stood Hundley up. So I think, you know, Hundley for being delusional, as you said. My man, J.K. Dobbins, you know, the second leading rusher all time in the Ohio State history.
Just going to keep throwing this out there. Goodness gracious.
Well, you know, it's easy to do, but...
Yeah, because they wouldn't give me the ball because he's from Ohio State, but go ahead.
Well, I'm glad that they didn't because he was averaging 4.8 yards
he's a hard runner, man.
Yeah, he run
J.K.
hard.
Dobbins was rested. They set him out the game before that, as they did a lot of their starters, but... Again, I think it simply comes down to this Bengal defense in the fourth quarter, and they've talked about it. They are looking to make a big play. I mean, they go into that fourth quarter, you know, whether it's Travis Kelce, where they took the ball from him, as you said, the New England game, this game. I mean, they're looking, Jesse Bates and Von Bell both with 4 interceptions this year playing. I just love them as a tandem. This defense, man, is going to be hard to beat with a guy like Josh Allen, who's had 5 interceptions in his last 3 games, and will throw picks. I mean, he likes to go for the big play ball, and a lot of times he's just gunning it. But
he's going to take chances.
With this defense,
it's my only concern. That's my only concern is a deep ball, because I was grilling Alex about this young man. And I mean, I don't hate him because he's doing great because he's on the defense. Like he said, he's been playing his position. But Eli Apple still gives me fear on the deep ball.
He's been playing well, man.
I understand, John. I understand well. Mr. Miller, I understand.
Good football.
This is probably the first.
Mr. Miller, I understand.
This is probably the first time in a while time he's had a breakdown.
He's been fine.
I'm biased if I say anything, so go ahead.
He's fine. Eli Apple has been playing fine. The moment y'all waited for Eli Apple to have a mess up, the moment he had a breakdown, y'all jumping down his back.
Because I don't like Flowers. I don't like
saw
Flowers
some people that didn't make a post the entire game, and as soon as Eli Apple gave up that sluggo, that was their first post jumping down his neck. I'm like, y'all gotta stay positive.
But
man.
again, those are fans that are looking to criticize. Period. Right. They're not looking to compliment. They're looking to criticize. Right. And to your point, it made some plays the last 3 weeks, even especially coming down the stretch. Eli has been making plays
for sure,
and nobody wants to give him credit.
Right.
But the minute something happens, it's like, oh, Eli Apple.
And it's funny they pick and choose when they want to do it. Because just like you said, Bates has been playing well. Bates gave up a big
he definitely did. Yeah,
but nobody says anything because he's just.
I do. I don't play about that secondary. So this is my thing about the secondary. My only issue is in regards. Only reason I say that is because when things happen with Eli Apple, it's always a deep ball. Pause. So it's always a long shot, and it ends up being on him. So I worry about that. That's my only concern. But now that we've adjusted in defense that I've seen recently, and them being ball hawks and being greedy and going to get this fumble. I've never seen DBs react the way our DBs are reacting right now and going to get all these strip balls, going for these picks. It's just we're overly aggressive right now. I like it.
Apple takes chances, and we know that. And it's like I was telling you, to calm down at the moment because I was hot. The very next series, like you said, going down the sideline, Mark Andrews, who was a mismatch nightmare. He's too big for safeties. He's too fast for linebackers. Goes up and actually Jesse Bates was not in bad position.
No, he wasn't.
And he did what you taught. He raked up with his arm. And, guy just made a play, and that happens sometimes. You got to remember the guys are getting paid on both sides of the ball.
That's right. James Francis used to always say that the other team gets paid too.
Yeah.
And next week, do not panic.
All right, I'm going to try not to.
Diggs does what he does to everybody.
Yeah, that's true. He's been doing it all season.
Gabe Williams is going to come out and play, but Diggs does what he does to everybody.
And the thing that people keep forgetting, man, you got to remember, what coverage are we in and what are they running? Sometimes they just call the right play for the right coverage. It's not the defensive back or safety didn't do anything wrong. That coverage for that play was not good, and it happened. Just like they try to run a play, and Lou Anarumo has a coverage that confuses them. I mean, that's the game of football, is that you have to have short-term memory loss because every play, something may not go the way it's supposed to. But rest assured, what I love about Lou is when he goes into halftime,
that
adjustment is key.
That
adjustment is key every game it happens.
And while we shouting out the secondary, shout out Mike Hilton, man. Mike Hilton been balling.
Yeah, he has. He's been all over the place.
Cam Taylor-Britt as a guy that was thrown in the lineup when Chittibay went down. Cam Taylor-Britt, man, I tell you what, as a rookie, he stepped up and played well. He's a hard hitter. He's a good tackler, and he's getting better every week. I mean, this team has had guys step up, whether it's Irwin in for Chase, whether it's Cam in for Chittibay, whether it's Cam Sample and Zach in for DJ Reader and Trey Hendrickson. When you look at Hakeem Adeniji in for Lael Collins, I mean, now Kappa's out and Sharping's playing. The next guy comes in.
Yeah, that next man up.
And while everybody's kind of freaking out about losing the right side of the line, this line is still better than the line they had last year that went to the Super Bowl.
For sure.
So, let's not just kind of just fold the tent because of injuries. And with Ted Karras in the middle and his ability to communicate and motivate other guys, man, I just like having that guy on the offensive line to help these other guys get where they need to be.
He's great throwback. He reminds me of an old school lineman. He's not afraid to put it out there, be fiery. He's a leader, like you said. Yeah. You tell he inspires the rest of the guys.
Good dude, man. Good dude.
And he calls them out. He calls them out every time.
And we had Jackson Carman, local product, that had to step in. And I heard people groaning about that. And I wanted to talk about that as we transition to talk about the current status of the offensive line. They're still in dreamland talking about, well, maybe we can get Andrew Whitworth. Let me tell you something, folks. Who you got right now is who you got. That's Eli Apple included. Everybody, we are all we have right now, and they've been pulling together. And I think Jackson Carman actually did a decent job to get you out of the
series.
Yeah, for sure.
I asked Ted Karras, or somebody did. I asked him about just a couple of other things, but someone asked in the presser, he said he did fantastic. So I'm taking Ted Karras' word.
Yeah.
Versus somebody in the stands that's never played the game. But Ted Karras gave kudos to you, Jackson Carman. That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, Max Sharping has played in the NFL. He's played some games and snaps. But again, with Ted Karras being able to go to Jackson, give him some confidence and still trust in you. Man, I believe in you. You can do this, because everybody else likes to jump on this kid. For whatever reason, how do you expect this kid to feel when he feels like the whole city that's supposed to be rooting for him is against him? And I just sometimes, man, I just think that we as adults, and when I say adults, I'm talking people like my age and people that are grown. It just amazes me how they can just pounce on young people, even in college. You think about C.J. Stroud talked about how Ohio State fans were just, going after him, and
he was getting death threats.
Yeah, it's the kids. They're playing football. They're kids. They're trying to learn how to become pros. And you got grown people who aren't all pros at their job getting on kids.
Well, and Jackson Carman, I was telling, a lot of fans, I said, well, hold on. I said, here's the thing that is going in our favor. Let's flip it. Let's have a half-empty approach. Actually, I had more confidence in him stepping out there to tackle his natural position to where muscle memory could take over. He could just play football and be the athlete that he was drafted to be. And he kind of showed that in a lot of plays, out there. And I did make an effort last episode to shout out, Mr. C.J. Stroud, because it wasn't even as much nationally, like you said, internally. Buckeye Nation, Columbus, Ohio were just lighting him up. And I get
Imagine that.
Speaking
of ungrateful. Speaking of ungrateful.
I think it was just the stigma of the offensive line last year. I don't feel like Jackson played bad last year.
He didn't.
Like, being that young, as many sacks as he didn't give up last year, I don't think he played bad.
That Fairfield product does his job. He does what he's supposed to do.
What I believe this week, if he's out there again this week, I believe that with a guy like Ted Karras, working with him, the coach working with him, I believe he can have a good game. He doesn't have to have a great game. He has to have a good game. If you get beat once, then you get beat. But hold your fort. Hold it down. If you got to protect that blind side, protect that blind side. Do whatever you have to do. He's got the toughness, the grit. I mean, we saw that Baltimore game, the last game of the season, when he drove the guy all the way into the sideline. Now, it might have been a penalty or whatever.
Excessive blocking, like in
was he was showing that he was gonna man up.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, the offensive lineman, I want the kid to know that there are people that want him to do well, and I'm one of them.
So on the offensive line tip, we talked about what they have to do and pulling the fort together, and the guys, like I said, that they have right now are who they have, and that's what you have to deal with going forward. But kind of flipping to switch something else I wanted to speak of, because we're versatile around here. I want to talk about the Ravens for a minute before we move past them. There's been a lot of criticism, I'm sure you've heard, about Lamar Jackson and him not playing in this game. And what I caution a lot of fans that don't understand the dynamics both on and off the field is there's some serious undertones that you might unfortunately get looped in and not even know it. I know one of the things with Lamar Jackson is a lot of the organizations within the NFL and the agents and so forth don't like the fact that his mom, represents him, and he doesn't have one of those big power broker, agents. And you were talking about a former NFL MVP, and I don't really remember, at least in recent years, someone really getting called into question their fortitude or whether they're really hurt or not. And I think there's a tendency when the business side comes up from a player standpoint, when they kind of have to look out for themselves or they have the hammer in their hand, which isn't often, they automatically become the enemy in the eyes of the media. And all I could think about was one of the guys that was standing there working for ESPN right now is RG3. And thinking about, well, what if Lamar Jackson went out there with that knee brace and did get hurt even more? He's not under contract after this year. And that's going to devalue him even more from the standpoint that he's in. And I thought Baltimore was really, I can't say and never would question the man whether he's really hurt or not, but I think they are the ones to blame because they're in this situation because you haven't re-signed him to this point. So can you speak on that or what you feel about the Lamar Jackson criticism?
For me, this is a business after your first couple years. I tell people all the time, when you go in the NFL the first year, maybe the first 2 years, I'm in the NFL, that's beautiful, I made it to the league, After that, you start to understand this is a business. Mm-hmm. From the player's perspective all the way up to the owners, it is a business. And so you have to start making decisions that align with what your goals are and what your future holds. If you're a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, you understand your value, right? And so, a lot of people didn't like his mom, and I hear he's doing it himself now. But the reality is he's betting on himself. Huntley helps him the way he plays. You look at the point differential between when he's starting and when Huntley's starting, significant. Mm-hmm. After this game, a lot of the players came out and said, we need to get Lamar signed because the reality is when you put Lamar in the game, it is a totally different game, and you have more to defend. Now, getting to the money aspect of it, every team has a dollar figure in mind, right? So if you and I negotiate in your mind, there's a number for you that's going to make you go ding, 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 ding. Mm-hmm. I got the same thing, but that number may not be the same.
Right.
Mm-hmm. The question becomes, do we meet in the middle? Do we hold out for the other things that we don't know about, some of the stipulations, some of the subsets of the contract, maybe incentives or, no trade clauses and stuff like that. So I think that a lot of times what's reported is only surface, right? So it's just like any of us. If we're in a situation, you might say, hey, Wayne, my job is tripping, man. I'm whatever. You're only telling me so much.
Yep.
You're not telling me.
Just giving a portion of the story.
You're not telling me the whole
everything.
story, but I'm going to take what you give me, and then I'm going to run with it and say, hey, man, they doing my brother wrong, man. They, whatever that woo-woo.
Word of mouth.
Come find out later where there was this other aspect of it, and you go, oh, wait a minute, now that makes a difference. So I look at it this way. The Baltimore Ravens are at a disadvantage right now because they're going to have to decide. Do we say he's our quarterback and pay him what the league dictates? Because being a union, you're going to have to pay him something commensurate with the other quarterback. Yep. Now, to me, what they should have done was signed him because every year the price of the quarterback is going up. Yeah. So let's say they signed him last year or the year before, and everybody would have said, oh, I can't believe you signed him for that outrageous amount. 2 years later, that's not outrageous. Because if they're talking about Justin Herbert set to get $30 million,
Russell messed it up already.
And things like that.
He already messed up the money for the quarterback. So the money the quarterback number going up.
Sometimes you just have to do that. I always think about the Nike deal. This is a lesson I always tell people.
Oh, that's a good way of saying it.
When they signed Tiger Woods for, I think it was $48 million for 6 years or something, everybody was like, you are crazy. I can't believe you would give him that much money. That first year, their golf division probably made $150 million. But they were smart enough to know that this might look like a lot of money today, but 5 years from now,
this ain't gonna be nothing.
Nothing.
Or as Fat Joe always says, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and you look at the guys like a Kyler Murray and some of the other guys who have gotten deals already that are not league MVPs, that have not done for their team what Lamar Jackson has. The Ravens have put themselves at a disadvantage at
look at
this
Mahomes
point.
when he signed the contract. What it also does is Mahomes can go back and renegotiate enough to peel back some of that money to sign other players and still keep his contract looking good.
Yeah.
So, again, those nuances of those contracts give you room to do other things. And I think that's what, when you think about what Joe Burrow was saying, like, hey, I'd like to keep all the guys here, they're probably going to work some language in his contract whenever they do sign him.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. There's some language in Mahomes' contract that is not done by anybody else. If you ever look up his contract, he has numerous clauses in those. And some of it is his offensive line. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think looking back on this, we talked about this a little bit off the record, what certain teams do as far as their system. Right. They talked about that this morning on ESPN and what their DNA is, how they go about building a team, who they believe is important. Honestly, I think the Ravens already made their choice because they just traded for Roquan Smith and they already signed him to an extension because they're telling you, going back to Ray Lewis and how they started the Ravens when they got there.
So they've never deviated from it. They've never deviated from defense. They had Terrell Suggs, when he came, and then, they will continue to put money on the defensive side of the ball because they believe that they can get an offense to put enough points up that their defense can come in and then shut down the rest of that game. And so the Steelers, you think about the Steelers over the years, they've always put the lion's share of their money on defense. Mm-hmm. And what I love about this Bengal team and their DNA and identity is Zach Taylor has said, we are looking for smart players. We are looking for captains, co-captains, former leaders, because if we can get all these guys that have these leadership skills,
they got one mission.
Becoming followers is not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because when you lead, you know what following means. And so if you lead and you come here and you know that Joe Burrow is the leader, it's not hard to follow him because you knew what it was like when you were a leader. And I look at the personality of these players, and I think that's why the chemistry is so good, because leaders come in and understand what team and what chemistry is about. And it is every Sunday you see it, man. Yeah. These guys, they get it.
Well, it's like I used to tell, our players at Purcell when I was coaching there last year. I said, the best teams are player driven. We can harp as coaches and even front office people can, put in a plan what they want. But when you have leaders in the locker room that are actually leading by example and holding their own teammates accountable, that is invaluable, to a successful team. And that's usually what you see with successful teams. But taking a look at the divisional round, I know we also talked about this off the record. Everybody has their opinions. Again, I want to preface it by saying what I said last week. We are all happy that, the brother Damar Hamlin is, improving and on the road to, full recovery and, even visited his teammates at the Buffalo facility. But that does not stop those of us in Cincinnati from feeling like we got the short end of the stick. And, we're going to Buffalo when a lot of us felt like, had that game played out, maybe the Bengals would have won and obviously had the 2 seed and had, 2 home games and this divisional round being played here. But, that's all water under the bridge at this point. So what's your level of confidence? What do you think about, what the Bengals need to do to get a dub up in Orchard Park?
I think the Bengals just need to be the Bengals, man. I think that they need to go out and play their brand of football. I think one of the things I like about Joe Burrow is, and you saw it in the Baltimore game, if it's not deep, I'll do short. If it's not short, I'll do middle. If it's not on this side, I'll go to this side. Whatever is available, he is going to take. And I think that that's going to bode well because, Leslie Frazier has a good defense. Mm-hmm. They get after it. But Joe Burrow understands getting rid of the ball is paramount. And if that means that a 5-yard route to somebody may turn into 8 yards, maybe a broken tackle will be more, they're going to do that. On the other side of the ball, I think that the Bengals are looking forward to the opportunities that Josh Allen will provide them because Josh Allen is a big play guy. Mm-hmm. And big play guys will always give you some 50-50 balls
and get
that you can go after. And Jesse Bates and Von Bell in the back of this defense have shown that they can go get the ball. You look at this team up front, Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard really get pressure on the edges. And I just don't know of another grown man like DJ Reader. I mean, this dude, he was...
That's your boy, John.
He was getting challenged by Tyler Linderbaum. But when it was time to turn it on, I mean, to me, man, I tell people all the time, man, when you watch football and you watch the interior and look at what a guy like DJ Reader does, taking on 2 people, and then I'm like, dude, not even out of breath. He just, and engaging and then disengaging. And he just, man, I love watching that guy play. But this team and Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, as far as a combination of 2 linebackers, I mean, Logan Wilson has 100-plus tackles. I think Jermaine had 90
he was right
tackles.
There. Yeah, he was right
there.
But
it's what they do in addition to tackling. Strip the ball, get interceptions, deflections, defend, passes. I mean, TFLs, they do it all. And Lou Anarumo has guys that he can move around and create all of these different schemes. I mean, you've seen Sam Hubbard dropping in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of those guys moving up and coming off the edge. So I think that what Buffalo's going to have to be worried about is what Josh Allen does. He got sacked 7 times this last week. You're going to have to worry about him. He was careless with the ball.
Yes, he was.
And so I like this team's chances. I like this team because they know what it takes to get to the Super Bowl. They did it last year. They like the fact that you don't think that we belong here. I thought this game, if any game should have been played at a neutral site, it should have been this one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because whoever won that game between the Bengals and Bills would have determined who had the 2 seed. And so had we won that, so I thought that would have been a neutral site game. But you know what? This team don't care.
Nope,
they really don't care. It's like, okay, we got to go to Buffalo. Let's go to Buffalo. I do want to say something real quick about Buffalo as a city and a fan base. After everything that happened with Damar Hamlin and how the city of Cincinnati loved up on him and loved up on the Bills fans who stayed around, I heard that the Bills fans said, hey, we want Cincinnati Bengal fans to come up here so we can reciprocate and show you guys some love. And I thought that's what this is all about at the end of the day, because Damar, he brought everybody together, man. I believe God just used him to help us all drop them filters and hang-ups. And we were all one, man. Yeah. White, black, male, female, Buffalo, Cleveland. It didn't matter, man. Yeah. We were all praying for that young man. And in that moment, man, nothing mattered. There were no diversity, no hang-ups. So I think that the Buffalo Bill fans recognize what we did as fans, and they're saying, hey, come up, let's have fun. When the game starts, we'll both root for our teams, but before that, let us show you some love, man.
And I think that honestly dates back a while, because I think their fan base is one that could kind of identify with the Bengals. After the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost in the 90s, there was some lean years between this and Mr. Wilson dying and Bills going up for sale and them kind of being the team that they are now. So they can kind of relate to the Bengals fan base. And they are a small market, too. The
Bengals have a 2-0 advantage in the playoffs against Buffalo. Buffalo leads the regular season series, but playoffs, they've met twice, and the Bengals have won both times.
And I know I think the most recent one was that 88 and the AFC Championship. Yep. So, and the Bengals, of course, back in, I believe, 2016, beat the Ravens on a last-second pass to Tyler Boyd to get the Bills into the playoffs. And I remember them donating.
Raising all that money for Andy Dalton, and they raised a little bit for Tyler Boyd's foundation.
Yeah, so there's always been goodwill. But I like the point that you brought up about how deep this defense is and these playmakers. Big John, I'll get you in here so you can talk about your boy DJ Reader up front. But there's even forgotten guys, I think, to a certain extent, like, Akeem Davis-Gaither. That's out there now. Big
interception in this last game.
My man from Texas that was
Joseph Osai.
Yeah,
he's been coming. Cam
we didn't have him last.
Tulane.
We didn't have him last.
Josh Tupou.
Yeah, those guys are adding incredible depth. Giving Sweet Lou more, options. Marcus Bailey, Big Ten guy from Purdue.
Yeah, Michael Thomas, man. The uncle, as they call him. The way he leads special teams, man. Those guys get after it. Stanley Morgan. Yeah, I mean they have guys that want to make plays, and I tell you, a guy who I've been very, very proud of and impressed with is Travion Williams, man. He has done really well on kickoff returns. And he may break one. They might look at Naeem Hines
his
as a guy to break one up there, and he's done it. But, man, I would not be surprised if Travion Williams gets one.
Now, Mr. Miller, you ain't think that was set up, man, when they had that opening kickoff back against I was watching that. Theories. I'm like, come on now. That was just too perfect of a storybook.
Hey, man, sometimes it just lines up, man, where it's just serendipitous, man. You just got to accept it for what it is. And I think, the reality was that everybody on that team out there on the kick return team had a point to prove, man. They wanted to make something happen. And, the emotion works on both sides. So you think about all the emotion Buffalo had. Well, there's emotion on the other side, too, because they know that they're playing a team with a player who almost lost his life. There's some emotion there, too. And I thought in some ways that when the Bengals played the Ravens the last game of the season, we don't know how people handle trauma. You know, you might get over it today. He might get over it tomorrow. He and it might be a month before we really let totally go of that. So when I was watching the Bengals-Ravens game, in my mind, I thought, I just wondered about that because I've had family members who have had some serious trauma and, committed suicide and things of that nature. Man, I'm just telling you, man, that's a hard thing, and it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
We all go through it in a different way.
Well, I was talking to Big John about that, get him in here, that to me, honestly, neither team has looked the same since that Monday night as far as sharpness. And, they made the comment earlier on ESPN, Buffalo might even be going the opposite direction with the way that they're playing right now. What do you think about that, Big John?
It's crazy because you said that when I text you when I seen it, when the Bengals first came out, when they played the Ravens right after that happened, I was like, they came out mad. They came out playing angry. Like, you can tell they wanted to win. Towards the game, it kind of tailed off. I kind of felt like Mr. Higgins wasn't all the way in the game. Some dropped balls, some overthrows that I felt like he could have ran and caught. I could tell he wasn't all the way there. Maybe that's just me. Like you said, maybe that's because of the situation that happened. But I felt like they came out, they wanted to win because they were mad about everything that went down with the whole situation. But then after that, it kind of tailed off. Once the feelings came down, you could tell they really wasn't all the way there.
Yeah. Well, they certainly have an opportunity to atone for that. I think that this game is going to be one that comes down to who makes those 50-50 plays, like you said, that Josh Allen is going to serve up. I think the Bengals, having been here as recently as last year, serves them really well. They're not intimidated by whatever environment they're going to encounter.
I'm not as nervous as I was last week.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a horrendous Buffalo weather game either.
Yeah,
that's what I was worried about.
That was our biggest concern too. Yeah, I think we talked about that too. Like that was like, I'm worried about this weather being crazy. And then when they moved it up to 3:00, I'm like, oh, they must be predicting some weather going on. And then
I think the Bengals. One thing the Bengals have going for them, man, is this is familiar territory.
Right.
You went to Kansas City last year and beat the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl. You're going to Buffalo to advance to the AFC Championship game.
We did it with Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. So this team understands what it takes to win. And that, again, I like this team. I like how they approach the game. I like how they work together. I like how the offense is, rooting for the defense rooting for special teams rooting. They just understand, man, we know that we all need each other to get where we want to go. And I said it the last time I was on this show, and I'll say it again. From the time that they started camp, there was this purposefulness that they had that seemed like everything that they were doing because they had one goal in mind. And that goal is still in front of them, one game, one play at a time. But ultimately, they know where they want to go and what they want to do when they get there. So you think about Sean McVay and the Rams when they lost and they went back and then they weren't supposed to win that. So, you know what I mean? So you sometimes you get that taste in your mouth and you don't like it. Now I need everything to happen to get me back because I got something I left behind and I got to go get it.
Well, we talked about that last episode too, that look that Joey B had even after that Super Bowl. I could tell it was that, okay, yeah, you got me this time. Right. I'm coming back.
Right.
You could tell, and I think that has been a focus of them. And speaking of that, the way that they get along, you can't fake that. You can tell that these guys really love playing with each other. They hang out off the field. They take trips. It was nice to see the ruler of the jungle this past week was
TJ. Who's your mama?
TJ Hutchinson. And of course, our boy, Ocho, another franchise legend, was in town. And I remember thinking back to those teams, like they, not to say that they weren't close, and you can agree or disagree with this, but it was more cliquish. Like TJ hung out with Chad, and Willie had off. That's the line. I don't really know who Corey Dillon hung out with, maybe himself, back in the day. This group is together.
Well, and the thing about this group that many people don't know is that there's this intermingling. You might have DBs hanging out with linemen. You may have linebackers hanging out with wide receivers. You may have, D linemen and running backs. I mean, they are that close that positions don't matter.
Right.
Like they hang out, as you were saying, a lot of times linemen hang out together, wide receivers. You might see a guy over here with a guy. You're like,
I see Joe Mixon with Jermaine Pratt all the time. Every time I go out somewhere, Joe Mixon with Chase Higgins and Boyd and somebody else.
It's an authentic, genuine,
they all
mutual
go out
admiration society, man, that just translates into a stronger unit on the field.
Yeah, and I do want to shout out before I forget. We mentioned him earlier. Mike Hilton, to me, I don't need PFF to know that he's easily top 3, if not the best slot corner in the league.
Man, Mike Hilton be coming, man. I'm just telling you, man. When Mike Hilton says he's coming to get the quarterback,
he do it.
Quarterback getting got.
Yeah. He's so instinctive.
He getting got, and he tackles well. He is a great tackler.
Yeah,
he is a textbook tackler. He's going to get you to the ground. But again, Mike is smart. He's savvy. Mike is a football mind. He understands the game, man. And he just plays the game. Mike just, you watch Mike, you get excited because you just know that he knows what he's about to do.
I don't think he's missed a blitz possession yet either.
Mike is like that pitcher, like Mariano Rivera. I'm throwing a cutter. You know I'm throwing a cutter.
You can't do nothing about it.
And you're still not going to get to first base.
Ain't gonna change.
Yeah, he really doesn't disguise that corner blitz the whole bunch. Like, he'll come up late sometimes, but, he wants you to know that he's coming. Yeah. And he's all of 5'9", 5'10",
Same height as me.
Not the biggest guy, but he's going to make the play.
Mike is money, man. He's money, Mike.
So as we get ready to wrap things up, I think back on how this season started, and it was 0-2, and you heard all the pundits talking about, the odds of a team making the playoffs. I forgot what percentage, but this game and team really turned around when the offensive line started to gel together, I thought. And, it almost seems like in consecutive weeks, we lose LC, we lose Kappa. Now Jonah Williams, I heard, structurally there was nothing wrong with just a, dislocation. So he's kind of, day to day, but that's going to be a sore, injury to come back. But I think, as we spoke about earlier in this episode, the togetherness, guys stepping up, is going to put us in good position going up here to Buffalo. I don't want to make any predictions or anything, but I do believe our Bengals will be victorious if I had to guess on what's going to happen. But this is a matchup that a lot of people wanted to see. We know, as we also spoke about off the air, seems like the league and everybody else wants to see that Chiefs Bills
rematch. Yeah, they want the AFC Championship game rematch to hype it up to high heaven. But I love the fact that this team loves to continually disrupt the status quo. Mm-hmm. And what I like about this team going into Buffalo is they understand what they're there to do, man. I mean, this is a business trip. They're going to take care of business. I like the fact that they understand what they need to do. And I've said this of late, that this team, over the last, couple years, this is a team now that if you make a mistake against them, you may not recover. Mm-hmm. And in that Baltimore game, they made that mistake at the wrong time. You can't recover. And I think for me, what I'm looking for in this game is for them to take advantage of the opportunities that they'll get with Josh Allen, whether it's pressure from Trey Hendrickson, who I love Trey Hendrickson coming off the edge with that high motor, whether it's Bates and Bell, on the back end, or whether it's Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt trying to force something or create something. Every level of this defense can make big plays. And that's what I'm looking for. I think that these guys are physical. They make big plays. They make big plays at the right time. And when you got number 9
always
on
got
the
a
other
shot.
side, number 9, man.
I think Big John said it. You the one that told me. He said, I feel like the defensive line was going to be the factor.
And getting back to your point about the offensive line going 0-2, and you guys know football enough to know this. You're not going to get 5 guys and all of a sudden the chemistry is there.
Right.
It's going to take time. And we saw week by week, they just kept getting better and better and better. 14 weeks in a row they're together. and they're playing a good brand of football. So I think that you saw what happened. We got the line now. We got the guys. Injuries are a part of football. Nobody's feeling sorry for us. No more than we're feeling sorry for the Ravens that Lamar Jackson didn't play. You know, you got other guys, send them out there. Right. We send our guys out there. You know, we got something to send out there.
Yeah, and I know in previous playoff runs, as we wrap up, nobody felt sorry for, the Bengals. I go back to, 2014? We had a skeleton crew against the Indianapolis Colts. I think Rex Burkhead was even out there playing wide receiver. There was no A.J. Green, no Marvin Jones, no Jermaine Gresham, and like you said, injuries are always going to be part of the factor, especially this time of year in the NFL. So you have to, that old cliche, next man up. I always joke about it because Tom Jackson, another guy that lives here locally, he always says, well, that guy was starting for a reason.
Exactly.
So, so you can say that to a certain extent, but I do believe the Bengals have the guys to get it done. Actually.
Well, Duke Tobin and his staff have done a great job. Here's the thing. The guy's starting for a reason, but what you want is to minimize the drop-off.
Right.
Right? So if you rank this guy at 100, then if this guy is at least 90 or 90-something, whatever, 89, whatever, the drop-off is not severe.
Right.
That's what you want. So you're the starter, you're the guy. But if you get hurt, we know that this guy can come in. And again, Trent Irwin, Chase goes down. He comes up with a couple of big plays, Joseph Osai comes in for Trey Hendrickson. You look at Cam Taylor-Britt coming in for Chidobe Awuzie, and he's hitting people. And everybody going, who is this guy? Hey, it might be a drop-off, but it ain't that much.
Well, if you watch a guy like him, obviously both of us watch a lot of Big Ten football. You knew that Cam Taylor-Britt, that was his, main trait coming out. He was going to be physical.
He's going to be physical.
And he surprised a lot of people running a 4.38, at the combine. So they got depth all over. What we're trying to say, folks, as we wrap up, is we're really confident going into the divisional round. You should be also. Factual Opinions Podcast. We want to thank Mr. Miller, of course, for stopping by.
Hey, man, you are a good luck charm every time you come here. Yeah, you got to keep coming. You got to keep doing this. Keep coming in here.
Hey, man.
Because last time you was here was right before the season, and look where we was at.
Right.
Well, I don't know, because, that game in November ain't been going right since we had Mr. Miller out here. So.
Works for me. I'll order some new cardigans.
Here we go. So, hey, folks, thank you for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe and check out the YouTube channel. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. Factual Opinions. Follow us on IG and Facebook. Again, Mr. Miller, thank you for stopping through. Bengals, let's do it. Who they? We're out of here.
Yes, sir.
Right now.